Welcome to Commerce Media Matters, your go-to podcast for unpacking the world of commerce media. Here, we catch up with industry leaders on news, research, insights, perspectives, and everything in between.
Hi, I'm Nick, founder and CEO at Voodoo.
And I'm Paul, Chief Growth Officer at Voodoo.
Our guest today is a certified ad tech and retail media trailblazer. Callie Wearmouth has shaped the strategies of some of the world's biggest brands, such as Unilever, Microsoft, and then spent 10 years at Amazon Ads, where she helped take the global advertising business to the next level.
And now she's taking on a new challenge as Managing Director at Mars United Commerce, a publicist-backed agency. She's leading regional growth, spearheading retail media rollouts, and helping redefine what connected commerce looks like.
With plenty of media rollouts under her belt, Callie's the perfect person to help us unpack where commerce media is headed next.
Absolutely. Callie, look, welcome to Commerce Media Matters.
Thank you for having me.
Callie, congratulations. You've had an incredible 18-year global career spanning some amazing companies like Unilever, Microsoft, and Amazon Ads, which we are very familiar with.
Just a couple of little ones.
Look, we love learning about people and learning about where they started and how they started. What were some of the early learnings? Like, where did you start with your career and what did you take into this type of career? Were you always going to be in this type of career?
No, it's really funny that you asked that. My original ambition was to be a vet, actually. Advertising was not even on the agenda.
That is different.
Very different, very different, until I found out that the animals don't always get better. And then I thought maybe a different path.
I'm trying, but I'm going to stay away from it. I'll keep you going.
So I think like many people, it was a teacher's influence actually when I was pre-A-level, so probably kind of 15, 16. We were doing a media studies class and we had to make a TV advert. And a lady called Mrs. Darlow called out that her son actually worked for an agency in London making TV ads all the time. And as a student that was really enjoying this project, I thought, oh my goodness, there's an industry that does this. So that sort of was the first clue that this might be something that I wanted to go into. And that led to doing further research down that track, finding out that marketing was a degree that you could do, and sort of starting that process, a 3-year, what was called a sandwich degree in the UK, which
meant... catering.
No, not catering, not catering, but basically 2 years at university, a year in industry, and a year back at university after that.
Yeah, right. Cool.
Gave me some real world experience and definitely meant that I'd picked the right track for sure.
Well, shout out to Mrs. Darlow, was it?
Mrs. Darlow,
for sending you our way. Such great talent. Working across lots of regions like the US, the UK and ANZ, how's that shaped your strategic approach? Any surprising learnings from operating across the different regions? I mean, the world is now operating as a global economy. I mean, we're from Voodoo who operate globally. Any key learnings that you can share with us?
Yeah, definitely. And so many things that I never thought would have come up, actually. So, I mean, the first one, important learning. Just because countries all speak English definitely doesn't mean that all the cultures and the ways of speaking are the same. So I spent most of my career working with American-based companies and learning about the nuances between how the British operate, the Americans operate, the Australians operate has been fascinating. And as somebody that really enjoys people, it's really kind of helped me learn how to navigate the cultural nuances, shall we say. I think especially when people are working on high pressure projects, having to do something quickly for a client, those cultural nuances really come to the fore. Like an example being, if you sort of stress a Brit out, we really regress into not truly saying what we mean. And if you stress an American out, typically they will get more and more direct. Obviously, these are very sort of typical characteristics, but really learning about that really helps you to operate and flex in that global environment, to communicate in different ways to different nationalities. But it also teaches you that there's never one way to do anything. So it's definitely made me much more open in terms of how I think about strategies for clients, but also in terms of strategically how to get things done across multinational companies.
In the commerce media space that we're talking about today, is there any one overseas that you think is doing a really great job that you can share some learnings from?
Gosh, yes, that's a really good question. And I think it changes all the time. So there's a ton of Amazon alumni who have spread out into various different retail media networks across the globe. One of them in particular, I work with extensively, Seth Dallaire, who's now, of course, leading Walmart Connect. I'm fascinated to see what he is doing with that retailer. And the thing in particular that I'm watching is that he has a lot of the same tools that he had to play with at Amazon plus the largest store network in the largest retail environments in the world.
Yeah.
So kind of seeing how he's bringing to bear all of the digital chops that Walmart has got alongside what he can activate in store, I'm finding fascinating. Their venture into video that's happening at the moment, I think is also going to be really intriguing. But if I go back to my homeland, Tesco is doing wonderful things in terms of how they're bringing to life media in store, how they're wrapping entire stores. I think their Wembley store very frequently gets wrapped by either Coca-Cola or PepsiCo. And just how they're, again, sort of aligning that with their dunnhumby measurement aligned background is brilliant. And again, there's a lot of ex-Amazon people in there. So I get to read kind of in real time a lot of what's happening. So those are two places that I definitely lean into for inspiration.
Do you find what you're reading in real time, are you finding these markets to be ahead of Australia and ANZ or APAC, and that you can look to these markets? Or do you still find that we're a global market now and we're all moving at the same speed? And I ask that because traditionally in Australia, across many different industries, we were always a time period behind. I don't think that's as much the case anymore. What do you think?
I think in this instance in particular, it's not about being behind. It's in the fact that Australia, I think, has started from a different place when it comes to retail media in particular. So previous to coming back to Australia at the beginning of this year, I spent a couple of years in the US. And I think the thing that really struck me as different is that the US retailers have mostly started from a digital first positioning, and they've branched out into things like out of home, screens in store. Whereas in Australia, when I came back, I found it fascinating that a lot of the retailers here have started from out of home in the store, screens in the store, and are now building out their digital prowess. So I don't think it's behind. I think it's just that the two journeys are coming together from opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, that's a great insight. You spent over 10 years at Amazon Ads, right?
Yes.
That's an amazing run. And you helped grow the ads team to over 100 million in revenue. What are some of the key things that stood out over the last 10 years? And do they stand the test of time now? Can you rely on those in your new role as MD at Mars United? Are there things that you can lean on and go, actually, that works really well now?
So 10 years. So I guess let's ground people in what that means. 10 years ago when I started at Amazon Ads, which at that point was called Amazon Media Group, I think it's been through 3 or 4 rebrands in that time. The advertising element was a bolt-on to a retail deal. So at that time, I was working with consumer electronics clients like a Sony and a Samsung. And there would be a deal done for Amazon to buy a certain amount of televisions. And I, as the advertising representative, would be told, you have this many pounds to spend with Sony to promote those televisions. So very different to how they're set up now. But back in that time, we only sold display ads on Amazon. There was no mobile proposition. There was no DSP. There was no barely any measurement. I think it was a year into my career there that ROAS was invented as a metric.
Wow.
And I remember being one of the first salespeople to take that out to a company CEO. And it was very funny. You say sort of, what have I taken forward in terms of learning? I remember going into that meeting being so sort of proud that I was taking that metric out for the first time. And the CEO of this business said to me, that's all right, Kelly, 13x ROAS. I don't think it's okay, but, can we do better? And I remember at the time kind of leaving and saying to my boss, this is terrible. Like, why doesn't he think it's great? And I think in terms of learnings, that has definitely played forward to now, because ROAS, as we all know, is not the be all and end all metric. It's definitely not the only thing to hang your hat on. But I could never have known at that moment when I thought I was taking gold into this client that actually it wouldn't solve all challenges. So that's probably one thing that has definitely stuck with me. But I think the sort of greatest learning kind of coming from a place of no measurements, no mobile ads, all the way fast forwarding to when I left Amazon, we were talking about a data clean room. We were talking about Prime Video ads. We were talking about, multi-touchpoint campaigns across Twitch, IMDb, Amazon.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I would say I really learned is to be endlessly curious about what to take to your customer, how to frame up the proposition for how they're trying to talk to their client or their shopper, and to really be flexible and adaptable. And that is something that I've taken into this new role, knowing that the environment we're in is going to change month on month, and being as comfortable as one can be with that constant change, and bringing that excitement to the team and making them excited to be curious on behalf of their customers as well.
Yeah, cool. Great.
And so now you've made the shift to Mars United Commerce, which has had a huge year. So rebranding and adding that commerce piece there, but also joining the Publicis Group. But commerce is clearly a major strategic focus now. And obviously, Commerce Media Matters. We love that. Can you unpack what sort of drove that shift for Mars?
Yeah, so Mars United Commerce is a pretty unique agency, and this is one of the reasons that I decided to join, actually. So it was founded back in the 70s by a lady called Marilyn, who identified at that time that retail media was going to be a thing. So a pretty forward-thinking lady.
Very cool.
Go Marilyn.
Go Marilyn.
Yeah.
And during the years that the agency's evolved, it's kind of gone from, how can we bring things to life in store, and expanded out as the industry's evolved into, as you guys are well aware, how do we utilize that retail data outside of the retail platform? How in Australia do we use what we know about the shopper to get samples into people's hands at the right time in the right place? How do we then connect all of that back in with measurement? The commerce sort of addition to the name, I think, was an evolution from, just being the Mars agency to really bringing to the forefront what we do globally, which is all about connecting clients' brands with their shoppers at a moment that can be brand-led, but that has got commerce capability linked in there somewhere, because, of course, everyone in the end wants to get their product into their customer's basket.
And now we have a generation of consumers that expect to be able to have that basket filled in a
Absolutely.
heartbeat, wherever they are.
Amazon's trained them well.
Whatever content they're consuming, that's exactly it. Yeah. The aim is to turn every brand experience into connected commerce opportunity, right? Just as what we spoke to. Can you unpack what that means in practice, like really tangibly? How is that influencing your clients, and how do you take that kind of strategy to your clients, and how is it being received?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of my my strategists coined a really nice phrase which has stuck with me, actually, and she talks a lot about turning moments into momentum. So you might have that sort of one point in time where you hand a sample to a customer, potentially with a voucher to say, go and pick that up in Woolworths or Coles. Other retailers are available. Or, you meet them sort of in their digital journey, whether that's in a search journey, display, video. I think the thing we always sort of drive home in our strategic planning is, let's remove as much friction from that customer journey as possible. So whether that's providing a deep link through to enable the customer to add something to basket, or enabling them to pre-populate their details so they can request a sample, whatever it is, removing friction is at the center of everything that we plan and build on behalf of our clients.
Yeah.
We love that.
Cool.
It's one of our catch cries at
don't
Voodoo
we?
is around,
Yes.
removing friction and sort of, I guess, being able to convert from that point of inspiration, which I know Google's taught us with the messy middle, that you just don't know what that last touch point is anymore. And so being able to add, commerce capability. We had Colin Lewis. We just had him on the podcast. I don't know if you know Colin.
Yes.
And Colin was said, why wouldn't you want to add the opportunity to ask for the money if you're using your ads or content campaigns? Why wouldn't you want to have your shop front open? So we love what you said there. So with your work with clients like Woolies and Nestle and the Australian Open, which vertical do you think has pushed the boundaries of commerce first marketing for you? Which is your favorite client to work with, if you can pick one? And any breakthrough initiatives that you're excited to talk about or that you can talk about that might be coming up?
Oh, it's such a difficult question. It's like asking me to pick a favorite child.
I always tell my kids that my favorite child's the dog Bo, but they get most upset. But,
It's safe.
yeah.
Keeps them in
That's
their
a good
place.
answer. That's a good answer. So I guess maybe the first part of your question, which client has pushed the commerce boundaries the most? So let me maybe answer that with a slightly unusual answer. We've got a number of clients that work with us in both B2C, so direct to consumer, and a B2B, so direct to business capacity. And I think that B2B element doesn't get talked about enough when we talk about commerce.
Yeah.
So one of the clients that we work with is called Don, so part of the George Weston Foods group.
His Don is good.
A significant part of what Don do is selling their product into restaurant owners or catering companies. And one of their greatest challenges is that the person that sits between them as Don and that sort of end user of their product is a distributor network that buys everything from ribs to ham to bacon, whatever product it is. And they came to us with a challenge of, we're launching this new range, which is called Cooked. And they said, this is a new brand for us, a new range. We really want to get across to the distributors what it is. how it's going to work for them, how they can sell it into their end customers. And again, not a problem that, gets talked about very widely in the trade press, but for a lot of clients, this is a thing. So, for us, that meant going really deep with Don to kind of think about how to brand Cooked, how to produce sales collateral, not only for their internal sales team, but for the distributors that were then going to take it out to the end customers, how to internally train their team, how to get the distributors excited about the product. So doing things like events, having chefs come in and cook the product for them so they could try it and really talk with passion about it to their end customer. And then also doing things like, of course, driving that through, the usual media channels we'd all be familiar with so that those distributors could see that. And also so that, customers could start to see what might be coming to their local pizza restaurant soon. So challenges like that, really stretch the team because it's not your typical media avenues. You have to think really differently about a different customer set. But it's things like that, I think, that get us really excited because it's not as straightforward as we're just trying to drive a customer into Woolworths or Coles, which on its own has its own challenges.
No, a lot more strategic.
But it's thinking about that other player in the value chain for our customer Dom there in that instance.
Oh, that's a great insight, a great example. I would think of an engagement like that would be almost all of agency, right? It's touching so many different elements of the business, which is really exciting when the whole business can be engaged on a single outcome or to drive something really strategic like that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's, sort of creative strategy, our activation team, of course, our client leadership team are really trying to interrogate the brief with the client. It's everybody. And I think the thing that I'm sort of most proud of is kind of how we can bring all of that together into a package that is digestible for the client, something that they can activate. Because, of course, they've got internal stakeholders to get a project like that through. It's not just about one brand manager signing it off.
Yeah. And anything coming up that's you're really excited about that you wanted to preview, or are we asking too much there?
Oh, yes. Sort of in terms of coming up, sort of maybe asking too much because a lot of what we work with clients on is new product launches. So that would be a little bit naughty. But no, there's definitely some exciting things to come. We've got a very busy Q4 across both our grocery clients, but also some of our non-endemic television-based clients. So stay tuned for that.
That's good to hear. And I take from that you've got a good book of business coming into Q4. That's a great sign because we have seen, the market be somewhat depressed in the last quarter and before that. I note Combank came out with some interesting data saying they are looking at an uptick in consumers' confidence, and thus we're looking at budgets for marketing and brands. Looks like it's increasing. It sounds like you guys are coming into a strong quarter, which is what we want to see this time of year, right?
Yeah, I completely agree, but definitely won't shy away from the fact that working with a lot of grocery clients, there's definitely pressure, whether that's things like cocoa prices, whether that's, being impacted by various tariff changes. We're definitely seeing clients across the board looking to find value. I think the thing that we're really thrilled about is that they're still seeing value in that kind of face-to-face interaction with their customers. And so that isn't declining, but they definitely are pushing us hard on every dollar in a way that isn't surprising given the external factors at play.
Well, speaking of like every dollar, you spend a dollar, you've got to measure it, right? So from a commerce marketing perspective, it often requires marrying creative storytelling and measurable ROI. How do you balance the priorities when working with brand clients? How do you get that right?
Yeah, it's a great question. So this is definitely a moving feast and is something that I am the first person to say that we're on a journey. I think we're on a journey as an industry, actually, with this in particular. One of the things that I think we can all grow in is this connected creative all the way through the customer or the shopper journey. I think we've made a great start and I think we're making great progress, but more to do. I think in terms of how we measure it, there's a couple of tools internally that we really like to use. Like one in particular I'll call out. We have a tool called Dragonfly AI, which we use that almost heat maps our shopper creative.
Cool.
So that even before the creative hits the stores, we know, is the customer going to pick up that logo? Are they going to pick up the call to action? Are their eyes just drawn to the product? Because often when that creative is being seen in the in-store environment, the customer is with it for such a short space of time. You've got to be on the money. They've got to recognize the color, the pack shot, new, whatever it is that you've put on that creative. So that's something that we use a lot. And then, of course, in the post-campaign piece, like everyone else, really wrestling with how to bring contextual relevance to all of the data that we're getting back from our retail partners. So I talked about ROAS at the beginning.
Yep.
That is definitely not the be all and end all. So kind of really pushing to see, have we grown that brand's presence in a category? Can we get any insights around whether we've stolen share of basket? Have we moved customers from elsewhere in that brand's own portfolio? So like really trying to understand how can we learn from that campaign and deliver in a greater way in the next one. So definitely haven't solved everything.
Work in progress, really, isn't it?
Definitely a work in progress.
Yeah, it was certainly the talk in Cannes at the retail media debate that Colin and Kiri, who've both been on the podcast now, were involved in. It was certainly one of the things that the questions from the crowd, from the brand marketers, was in commerce media in particular and retail media, how do we show up more creatively and how do we pull the creative all the way through all the touch points? So it's really nice to hear that that's sort of, I would agree, it's something that we're all grappling with as an industry, but it certainly, I think, that's the next phase of growth for retail media and commerce media, I think. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I kind of smile a bit because I think the next stage of that will then be retailers going, oh, have we got too much going on in our aisles? And
is the store wrapped too much?
Is it wrapped too much? And I have that sort of thought because when I was in the US, I was working for a startup that was doing in-store digital signage. And one of the greatest debates that we had with one of the clients that we work with a lot there, Kroger, it's a very big national chain,
No, Kroger well.
was huge concern over how much is too much. We don't want the customer to come in and be like bombarded when they walk through the door. So I think that will then become the next phase of discussion. It's sort of how do customers, as in retailers, think about their environment. And brands like Whole Foods, I've heard them talk very extensively about they want actually a very calming environment for their customer when they come in. They want the focus to be on the food quality. Obviously, ads are sneaking in there a little bit now, but they're certainly not thinking about lighting everything up in neon.
I certainly don't have what are the Hawaii? They have, I don't want to say the word wrong. Starts with L. Is that
yes,
right?
Yes.
Trader Joe's, and they walk around, they put all like it's a very different experience.
Very
isn't it?
different
Very different brand. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but this is where that content, how you show up creatively in a place like Whole Foods, like you said, where the brand can show up with the right to play, where it's not disrupting the experience of the store. And that's where I guess agencies like yours and, products like Voodoo's, help those sorts of things to show up creatively, to get the right message across and sort of not, be that jolting experience that you get from sometimes when the ads are disrupting and they don't match up well. I know that also a lot of retail media struggle with, brand matching. So like that context becomes really important. Like a premium store.
Right.
Yeah. And so all things to consider, I guess. So wanted to close out with a question. Well, not close out, but get towards the end of the thing.
It's a big one.
Quite a meaty one.
It's a big one.
With the IAB shifting its definition from retail media to commerce media, how do you distinguish between the two? And where do you see the overlap? It's one of the questions we ask a lot of our guests.
The IAB's definitions of retail media being on the retailer's site and then commerce media kind of incorporating that, but also going beyond that. So kind of using the data off-site, etc. But also then including other non-retailer type commerce environments like travel, like hotels, etc.
Like CommBank's new launch
Like CommBank's new launch, absolutely. I think is a great place for us to put a flag in the sand. And I say sand because I think as this continues to evolve, like we were having conversations when I was stateside with an airline and they were calling themselves a retail media network. And I was thinking, well, hang on, like we're very far away from, what a Kroger or a Walmart is doing if we're on an airplane talking about screens. So I suspect what will happen, personal opinion, is that sort of over the next 2 to 3 years, the discussion will evolve to when does it just become media? Or when is it just another publisher bringing something to bear? So I think at the moment, definitions are great, but I do think it will continue to evolve, as I say, as we were having conversations with airlines, hotels, banks, where do they live across that spectrum? And I think the greatest challenge for both clients and agencies during this time, which is super exciting, by the way, is kind of how to sort through that and figure out where is the best place to put that message for the shopper so that they can cut through the clutter and go, yes, I want to buy that Mars bar and I want to put that in my basket.
So you mentioned airlines, you mentioned banks, obviously you've got the traditional retail media, lots of
Yes.
fragmentation. So
Yes.
I guess, that's where agencies like you come into play is providing a recommendation. And back to what we were saying before, how do we coordinate all those touch points? It's a real challenge for marketers, I'd say.
I completely agree with you. And, sort of 6, almost 7 months into this role, the greatest value I see my team adding in the conversations every day with clients is, we've seen this new thing, we've formed an opinion on it, let's talk about it. Because the client, they're time poor, there's so much going on. Having somebody to provide that filter and at least that top level initial thinking on where could this fit, how could you use it? Or importantly, actually, I don't think this is the right thing for you at this time. We might come back to it when we do another launch, but maybe this isn't the right thing for you right now, but we acknowledge it's launched. So again, kind of deciding where we want to spend our time and where we want to say, no, let's pause on that and maybe come back to it later.
Where do you see the space evolving over the next 2 or 3 years?
It's a really great question. The thing that I'm going quite deep on at the moment, because I'm very curious about this myself, is how does this question of AI shopping agents fit into a retailer and a client's marketing plan? And even in the initial reading I'm doing, I know that there's certain products that are starting to think about how you influence those agents when they come to look for a product. So it could be influencing things like the prompt that the customer types in for that agent, thinking about what that agent looks for when it gets to the site. I think that's going to be a major change. And I even sort of hesitate to say how quickly, but it does feel like in the next year, we're going to be talking about that pretty seriously, which to me is mind-blowing and talks to the speed this is moving at. I think the other thing, I talked to someone in my team the other day about the consolidation. So as the industry continues to fragment, and we saw this with programmatic, you guys will know this very well, consolidation has to happen because otherwise the client's trying to navigate 25 different media networks. I think it was very interesting. I read in the US that Macy's are one of the first major retailers to sign on to Amazon ads, retail media sort of consolidated proposition. I'm very curious to see how that unfolds because when Amazon launched that, I was the first actually to be skeptical. I thought, my goodness, like which retailers are going to join this? But Macy's taking the step is a big deal. So does Amazon have the opportunity to do for retail media what it's doing very effectively and efficiently at the moment for video content? I don't know. So those are sort of probably the two areas at the moment that I'm leaned into. It's that sort of AI agent space and that consolidation space for sure.
Paul and I do discuss this a lot, and we're both in agreement that we feel that Amazon's position will allow it to bring quite a few different innovative consolidation plays to market. And I think we're going to see specifically more with the recent Macy's move. We will see more of this because Paul and I have discussed, well, there's other areas of the business where they could actually offer their product, which would actually help other retailers become more profitable and more sustainable. So I think and faster, right? There's a massive infrastructure network there that can be leveraged for much smaller retailers. Why wouldn't you? It just makes sense. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting point to make. And I think that we will see, I'd like to see who the next retailer is. I think there'll be a fast followers after Macy's. Macy's kind of broken the seal. There's going to be more coming. They know, and Amazon knows that.
Macy's is the first penguin for sure. I think everyone was waiting to see who would go. And when you look at, I think Epsilon showed a chart at one of the previous events sort of breaking down retail media investment in the US and the bucket of retailers that exist in that sort of quarter of the pie. Why wouldn't they follow Macy's? So agree with you. Be curious to see how it unfolds.
Yeah. It was interesting, just to pick up another point that you made, was the whole, I guess, prompt engineering and, optimizing content and listings and all that sort of stuff for the LLMs and the agents to pick it up. And I think what I'm seeing now is already that shift. I know that there's a lot of organizations that we work with, publishers like News Corp and a few others that are now, instead of SEO optimization, it's finding people that are optimizing their content for the agents to find things. And it's about, are our APIs ready to hook straight into the LLM, and how do we show up for these LLMs? Like you said, it's a whole new ball game.
A whole new game. And it's something that I am right now, and this is how quickly it's moving. I'm challenging my team to really get into the weeds on that and think about, if a client comes to us and asks that question, what is our answer? How do you do it? I think my greatest fear sounds very dramatic, but it is kind of a fear, is that customers just start from a place of find me the cheapest Mars bar. Because then if everything comes down to that 1p and the 4 marketing Ps, that's an enormous challenge for brands, because all of that value that you've built and invested in that brand, if it's going to come down to price,
then it's a commodity.
That's very difficult.
Yeah. It's interesting. You also mentioned that you thought that Walmart were doing some really interesting things, again, in the AI space. They've been talking about, I think it's called Sparky, where they're, sort of already on playing with AI to help them show up for the agents. And that's their approach to AI, which I think is a really interesting approach for them.
Definitely. I must admit, that one I've only sort of read top level about, but the little that I have read, the thing that excites me is it being applied to a retailer of that scale and such an enormous customer base. So they're going to see such a diverse range of behaviors in terms of the different types of customers and how they use it. So they'll be able to learn so much about how to evolve that.
Yeah, it's a good
point.
point.
With a leader like Seth, that having worked with him for a number of years, him being able to sort of figure out how to scale that into products, into options for the brands that they're working with, I think will be fascinating to watch.
It's all ahead of us.
Brilliant.
It is. And we've got to stay curious and stay excited, I think.
That's exactly it. Stay curious. You have to.
Yes.
Look, this brings us to the part in the show that we're going to get into some lighthearted fun stuff. You don't have to worry too much. We're going to go for some quick fire questions. Pretty standard stuff, but we love the answers. So you ready?
Yes.
Good. All right. What's the last thing you bought online?
Oh my goodness. It was a book. I'm going to the Amazon rainforest next year, and it was a book written by the guy whose rainforest reserve we're going to visit. It's Paul Rosalie.
Very cool.
Great. What a great buy. Okay, cool. What podcast are you currently listening to, other than the Commerce Media Matters one, of course?
You beat me to it.
No, I knew, because you always get before me. So we're competing.
I have to say, I do love Lex Friedman. The diversity of going from a nuclear scientist to a journalist to a world leader to lean into that curiosity thing. I love it. And I love the fact that he's so intelligent that he can go toe to toe with anyone that he brings onto the podcast.
Yeah, amazing. What's your go-to online shop?
There's a number of them. Oh my goodness. Which one do I call out? I mean, it's got to be Amazon. It has to be Amazon. Be remiss of me not to say Amazon.
Good answer. To TikTok, are you a watcher or a poster?
I'm a watcher.
You're a watcher. I'm a watcher too. I'm not really great on the...
No.
Have you ever bought anything on social media? Because a lot of people haven't, because I buy on social media all the time. I'm a sucker.
I have. Instagram is really bad for my bank account. It just knows what I want. It's bad.
It's pretty powerful.
Especially at 8:30 at night when you're sitting down to have a gin and tonic.
Yeah, I mean, my feed's going to be full of that now.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I think you have an answer to this one. What's your most memorable ad campaign?
I'll take you back to the beginning of my career. And it was, I might feel really old. It was when Dove launched Campaign for Real Beauty.
Yeah. Seeing
real women in ads for body lotion at the time was groundbreaking.
It was bold.
It really was.
It was cool.
It was bold. And our brand managers at the time even created their own version of those ads. So even seeing real women from our office becoming poster women for that campaign, it really stuck with me. And they've changed the industry.
Yeah.
It's never been the same post then. So it would definitely be that.
Yeah, that's true. Great answers.
Well, Kelly, it was such an awesome session. That was, as we said, it was a bit of a game, but it was relatively painful. Thank you for sharing all of your insights. You've got an amazing career and we love what you're doing with Mars United Commerce. Thank you for joining us on our podcast.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Commerce Media Matters podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow and subscribe. We're always on the pulse of the ever-changing landscape of commerce media, ready to share the newest trends, insightful perspectives, and expert opinions with you. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and keep making media that matters. This podcast is executively produced and edited by Priya Tahazadeh, with co-producers Sandy Ho, Meg Lirsch, and me, Rachel Fang. This podcast is recorded on the lands of the Bidjigal, Gadigal, and Wurundjeri people, and we wish to acknowledge them as the traditional owners of the land.